Hello friends. Hi, how are you? Are you good? I hope you're good. It is currently a Thursday and I've read a lot in the last month or so. I read 10 books in January. Who am I? I don't know, but I'm already almost done with the third book of February and it's just wild. I'm having a great time. I even have a bullet journal, reading journal, and I'm you know, putting pictures and I'm writing ratings and reviews, and who am I don't know, but this is my wrap up for January. I read 10 books and we're gonna talk about them right now, so you know, get ready, be prepared, because I haven't done this in a while. My name's Erica. What's your name? Okay, let's get started. The first book that I read in January is The Deep by Peter Benchley, and he's a really cool guy, sort of. He wrote Jaws, which was a good book in theory, but then a lot of great white sharks were killed because of that book, so never mind. Anyway, The Deep is the second book by Peter Benchley that I decided to pick up because I love books about the ocean and all that stuff, and this one was definitely a disappointment. I don't really recommend it. I would say the highlight of this book is that there's a treasure hunting aspect to this book, but the writing is so bland. It's so bland and hard to get into, and the characters are just so stupid. They're just so stupid, and I don't know. This is so of its time, and it didn't age well. Perhaps it didn't age well. If you read this when it came out, you probably enjoyed it. I probably would have too, but it's not good, folks. There's a movie as well, apparently. Those are the cast photos, perhaps, and I haven't seen the movie. Do I want to? Yeah, I'll probably watch it, but anyway, if you're interested in Peter Benchley, skip The Deep and just read Jaws. After that, I read True Crime, which is this book here. This is by Samantha Kolesnik. This is actually a ARC, and it was sent to me by the author herself. This is from Grindhouse Press, and this is a very this is not for the faint of heart. It is a horror story. It follows our main character. She comes from a really like abused childhood. Her mom used to abuse her and her brother, and it's just so dark, and it's not an easy read. And then these two kids, after their mother dies, are able to flee, and they go kind of on the run, but on the way they also kill people, and it's just so graphic. I feel as if you're the type of person that enjoys really dark books that don't hold back and that do push the boundary and that do make you uncomfortable in a way, then I suppose you would enjoy this. But honestly, trigger warnings for everything, because this is dark, and this, I had to put it down a couple times just because, I don't know, just reading about stuff like that. The writing's really good, so there's that as well, but I don't know, it's just not my thing. The next book I read I don't have, but it's The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager, and this one was a lot better than I had, you know, originally thought it would be upon reading it. This is my first Riley Sager, and Riley Sager is all over the place. Like, he has so many books out. He is known for, I guess, his thriller books, and this one takes place at a summer camp where we have someone that's going back to kind of not relive her past, but kind of just to have things come full circle in a way, and maybe like move on and let things go by going back to where these brutal events at this camp took place. But of course things happen, there's a big old twist. It's a fun story. I would say that it's not something that I think maybe the everyday thriller reader would love, but since I don't typically read thrillers all that often, though I am picking them up more now, I'm not sure if you would fully enjoy it, but I loved the setting aspect of it. I loved that it took place at this camp. I loved the past storyline of this. I really liked our main character too, despite her being kind of a little all over the place. I don't know, I thought it was a fun time and I was thoroughly entertained. So I mean, I would recommend it, but I mean, I can see why people don't like it, which is something that I hear a lot that people don't really like that one, but I did. So yeah, okay, moving on. I then picked up, I find it really hard to talk about this one because it's just, I feel as if I needed to love it so much more than I did. But anyway, that's 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I just want to say that I acknowledge and I fully understand why this is so beloved and why this is so important and whatnot, and I understand that and I get it, and I'm happy that I read it, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it, and that's just the truth of the matter. I couldn't fully grasp this book. I felt like I was constantly going back. I was constantly going back to this family chart because I would get lost and I would get confused, and this book is just so it's just non-stop. I can't even fully describe it. This book is just so hard to follow. Writing is so just like almost not stream of conscious, but it just keeps going, and it's very whimsical and it's beautiful, but it's just, I don't know, it's very repetitive too, and it's not for me. I appreciate this book. I understand why people love it, but it is not for me. It will never be for me. I am so happy that I got through it, but by the last page, I was just like, whoa, it's over. Thank goodness. Moving on. After that, I read The Whisper Man by Alex North. I also don't have this, but The Whisper Man was so disappointing. So many people seem to like this one, but this is another thriller that honestly just kind of felt like a ripoff of Hannibal Lecter to me. I mean, you have this kind of character that is reminiscent of him, and the story just felt like it was grasping at straws and trying to convince you that it was anything special. And though it was entertaining at times, for the most part it was pretty boring, and I saw things coming a mile before they happened, and you know sometimes that happens, and what can you do? But I don't know, it just wasn't that great, and I wasn't very entertained, and not my favorite thriller of the year. So I'm just gonna give A Whisper Man like a no. It's a no for me. Oh my goodness, I finally picked up Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, and this was one of the most sad stories I've read in a really long time. Okay, it's so sad. I feel like this is one of those books that should just be read by everyone, honestly, even though it is such a sad story, and what these people went through and the time period and everything is just so sad and depressing. But honestly, Ruta Sepetys has such a way with words, and she brings these characters to life in such a manner that you root for them and you want the best for them, and you know, all of these characters are just so consuming, and you just fall into this world, and it's so sad, but just it's such a moving and beautiful story, and I cried and I was sad, and it's so how many times can I say sad? But it is sad, and it's beautiful. And I mean, this book says the forgotten tragedy that was 6 times deadlier than the Titanic. Read that book if you haven't read that book. I read An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, and this was, okay, I feel as if, as much as I don't like this book, I also love it at the same time. It's one of those books that I found so ridiculous, but at the same time I loved it so much. I'm so very on the fence with this book that I want to recommend it and be like, oh, it's so entertaining, it's so good, but at the same time, the dialogue made me want to just close it from secondhand embarrassment. For those that don't know, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing follows a weird story of how this girl becomes kind of famous overnight by discovering these statue creatures that pop up all over the world one day, and she names them Carl, and these turned out to be kind of like alien creatures, and so she is kind of the face of this sort of discovery, and we follow her as she becomes well known and she becomes internet famous, and her life and whatnot, and her life mixed with these alien creatures. And the concept is so fascinating because I love sci-fi, and I think that whole celebrity sort of topic, while isn't my favorite, it is entertaining outright on its own. But the writing style that Hank Green has, while it is endearing by the time you get to the end of the book and you kind of fall for the story, the beginning of it is so hard to get into because the writing is just something that needs to be worked on a lot. And so that's my opinion on that. I would recommend it if you enjoy sci-fi and that sort of thing, but it's just not a well-written book overall, just honestly, just putting that out there. So that was an absolutely remarkable thing. And then, oh my gosh, this next book was so disappointing. This is probably the most disappointing book I've read this year so far, and that is the third and final book in the, this book is kind of damaged, by the way, I got water on it, but it's final, the last book in the Caraval trilogy by Stephanie Garber. This is like when there's a series and you have that last book and it just wraps everything up in a little pretty bow and everyone's happy and dandy, and nothing happens to our main character, you know, even though there were so many high stakes before and people probably should have died and big things should have been revealed and blah blah blah, and you should hate people, but no, you just love them in the end because, you know, it's the end of the book, so we're just gonna make everything happy-go-lucky. It's that kind of book, and it's just so disappointing because this story had so much potential and had so much more that I wish it would have said, but it didn't. There were so many plot holes, so many things weren't explained. A lot of the side characters were just kind of thrown off to the side as if they were nothing, even though they seemed important in previous books. So I didn't like it. It's really, really disappointing. And then I read The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. This is the final book in the Truly Devious series, and this is one of those books in a series where you get to the last book, everything comes together, and it's not necessarily a pretty bow, but things make sense and things are wrapped up in such a better fashion that you feel happy, you feel satisfied that you read the series. And I was very happy with The Hand on the Wall. For those that don't know, this is a thriller crime young adult series that takes place at a boarding school that has a really, really dark past. There was a murder, and now we follow our main character Stevie, who's going to this school years and years later, and we follow two different time periods, her in the now and then the story from back then with the murder, and we kind of see how they're connected throughout all of the happenings in the series. And there's so many ups and downs and plot twists and questions, and things are answered and revealed, and it's so good. If you love thriller crime, and if you like books that are set at boarding schools, and if you like reading about characters that are super Nancy Drew-esque, then I think you would like this a lot. The last book that I read was also really bad, and that is which I had high hopes for this one too, because I just read a couple months ago, I think, The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, and that one was so good. But the last book that I read in January was The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, and this is just bad. This is a bad, oh sorry, things are falling, but this was pretty bad. It was just so boring. Like, nothing happened. I mean, things happened and you had a plot twist and a reveal at the end, but it was just so weak and lame. It was just so lame, and the characters were so bland, and the main character, she's very unlikable, and you know, you want to like your characters for the most part, unless they're unlikable characters that are at least interesting. But this girl wasn't even interesting. She was just boring and whining and kind of borderline, like you think she's crazy, but she wasn't in the end. So I don't know. I don't know if anyone likes that book. It takes place on a cruise ship. She thinks she sees someone that gets thrown off the boat, and I mean, I don't even care. I don't care. Don't care. It's not good. Anyway, I read all of those books in January, and I'm pretty happy with my reading month, and I'm reading a lot in February too. So that's, I think, all I have to say for today. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're doing great, and I hope to see you soon. If you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. And I will see you again, hopefully soon. Hopefully, I think. We'll see. I don't know. Okay, bye!